The cons that come with that are the debt and the fact that you might not be as employable at the end of university. And I don't think you don't see that when you first go to university. You think people are going to want to employ me. I've got a degree in a certain area, but in reality they've got a degree and they're quite book smart. But in reality, that might not transpire into being employable because of the life skills that they may not have gained during university, whereas someone that went down an apprenticeship route, say, for example, did gain those skills.
Welcome to Find Your Force, the Career Potential podcast. Everyone has a talent they were born to do, and we're here to help you find yours for your career. Whether you're taking the first step or the next step, our stories and advice are here to help. Hi, I'm Hope, the host of Season 2 of Find Your Force, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dominic for this episode. We're going to be talking about why university isn't the only option for success. Hello, Dom. Thank you very much for joining me.
No problem.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm really excited to have you here and discover all sorts about you.
Okay.
But let's jump in by hearing a little bit about your role.
Okay, so I am currently an engineering officer, aerosystems variety. There are two types, there's communications engineer and aerosystems. I'm currently posted here at RF Cranwell in recruiting, so I'm a boarding officer and I select the future commissioned officers and aircrew through the various sets of tests that we provide here at Cranwell.
So you're a great person for us to speak to about what employers are actually looking for when people apply for jobs, because you obviously vet them yourself. Yeah. Let's jump straight into the conversation about university. Why do you think university is seen as this, you have to go if you want to be successful, institution?
I suppose university really, it's probably deemed as the pinnacle of education. You're almost forced down that route to believe you should go to university, because if you go to university, you will get the best education and the best jobs and therefore ultimately earn more money. But in reality, I think there's too much emphasis on going to university. For example, myself, when I was at that turning point in my life, deciding whether or not to go to university, I chose not to go to university. I was successful to get into Newcastle University to study engineering, but decided at that time that maybe to commit such a long period of my life and walk away with a certain amount of debt and not necessarily experience first-hand life experiences that I could as going down more technician's kind of route, I decided against that. Whether it was a right or wrong decision, who knows? I mean, I deem my life so far to be successful, so I wouldn't change it for anything, really.
I'm interested to know why you actually applied. If it was when you were accepted that you had this realisation that actually, no, I want to go a different route. Why did you apply in the first place?
So it was a natural progression. I studied electronics at A level, which naturally set me up, and there was an emphasis at sixth form college at the time that based on your grades, you were almost automatically pigeonholed down the route of applying for university. It was almost sold to you as that's the next step. There are no other options. Also, there was the stigma behind, will I impress my parents if I go to university? Is it seen as the best possible route for me to go down? But backtracking, I decided against that. Again, purely around the fact of I wasn't ready to maybe go away to university and study, and I looked to industry from where I grew up to pursue my further career and get the skills that I felt that I could get from going straight into industry, rather than maybe the skills that might have required a bit more development for 5 years' time post graduation.
So when speaking about progression there and applying to university, when you first done that application, which I imagine was a UCAS application, you used the word natural quite a lot. Now, it wasn't naturally a progression that was natural to you, because obviously you backed out and changed your mind. But were you using the word natural because it felt like you were being pushed that way and that was the right way to go?
I think, yes, to a certain element, that you were being pushed down a certain route, because I specialised in electronics at the time, so my natural progression was down the engineering route. So there was always a preconception that to be an engineer, you need a degree. So therefore, there weren't another option. Whereas in reality, yes, to be an engineer, you need a degree. But to be a technician and to facilitate engineering, you can go out and get your apprenticeships, and you can work in industry and gain the skills and qualifications required to work at the standard, if not above that, of someone who had obtained the degree, but from industry and through, I suppose, on-the-job development.
So let's talk about your route a little bit more. You applied to that university, you got in, you then changed your mind. What happened next?
So I part of the reason I changed my mind, I got offered a job based off of my college results in the local area. That was short-lived. It wasn't technical enough for me, and I wasn't actually putting into practice what I'd been studying for the last few years. So I was keen to make the most of my time at college and pursued a career in the Royal Air Force, which offered me both a lifestyle and also to pursue what I've studied and to put into practice on cutting-edge technology and aircraft.
So you made that decision based on what you thought was going to stretch you more?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my decision was quite a narrow one at that. It was a case of my friend was serving in the Air Force. I saw what he was doing and attempted to replicate that after college. So I did. I was heavily backed by my parents at that point to go and join the Royal Air Force. And I didn't look back really. I kind of made that application and joined as a weapons technician back in 2006. Yeah.
So let's discuss the idea that university dominates conversations when it comes to what to do next. Why do you think that is?
I think there's obviously lots of pros and cons for going to university, such as, you going to university, you can become a subject matter expert in a particular field. And indeed, some fields require to go to university, such as maybe the medical profession or even engineering in some respects. And you can get a lot of skills out of going to university, such as the ability to critically analyse information and be able to conduct robust research into certain topics. They're all the pros. Obviously, the cons that come with that are the debt and the fact that you might not be as employable at the end of university. And I don't think you don't see that when you first go to university. You think people are going to want to employ me. I've got a degree in a certain area, but in reality, they've got a degree and they're quite book smart. But in reality, that might not transpire into being employable because of the life skills that they may not have gained during university, whereas someone that went down an apprenticeship route, say, for example, did gain those skills.
What skills do you think someone needs to possess to be successful with an apprenticeship?
So an apprenticeship it's a hands-on approach to the trajectory of what your pursuits. So skills you need to be innovative in design. You need to have the urge to repair things and fix things. From my point of view, anyway. You also need to have the drive to work with cutting edge technology and be ultimately at the forefront of that the evolution of whatever you're working in. So to possess those skills and that skill set is fundamental to then go and work as an apprenticeship, rather than going down the academic route where you might leave with all the information and the knowledge, but in reality have not had that chance to put it into practice.
You spoke about employability and how sometimes when people go to university they think, right, I'm going to get this degree, I'll get a job straight away, and they don't. With apprenticeships, are you always guaranteed a job?
So you're not guaranteed a job. An apprenticeship, it's a 3-4 year scheme, and at the end of it, chances are you'll continue to be employed by that company that has offered you the apprenticeship. It makes sense. And at the end of university, you're not guaranteed to get a role, because there might be X amount of apprentices that have completed their studies and have that experience to carry on and maybe fulfil the role of what someone with a degree could have carried on with.
So what we're saying is basically there's no set route. You just need to figure out what's best for you and your kind of skill set and what you want.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And I solely rely on a plan that I made way back then. And that plan was a life plan. And I set goals. I love a plan. My partner, on the other hand, she doesn't like a plan. So together we frustrate one another because I'm quite regimented in the way I do things. So I set a plan way back when, and with a 1, 2, 5, 10-year goal. And I learned very quickly that plan, although I set it in stone, that plan needs to be fluid and it needs to be alive, and you need to feed your plan and allow it to evolve. And that's where I started my path down the apprenticeship route, joined the Royal Air Force as a technician, and then later on in life went back and then studied for my degree.
How much has your plan changed?
Dramatically.
Yeah.
Dramatically, yeah. It changed. It changes on an annual basis, and that's obviously being in the Air Force. You have to be fluid with where you go and what you do. You get a certain amount to say, but overall, where I wanted to be is ultimately where I've ended up. So my plan has gone to plan to a certain extent, and hopefully it continues that way.
Did you always want a degree? Because the fact that you applied initially to university, didn't then, later on you've gone and got a degree. It screams to me that is something that you wanted out of life, but you didn't want to go down the traditional way of getting it.
I think when you boil it down to the fact that I gave up that opportunity at that time to go to university, and then again there's a certain amount of stigma about maybe going back to university later on in life. Have you wasted those years up to that point? That's another viewpoint on it. But for me, the degree was a natural progression with my role in the Royal Air Force. I got all I wanted out of being a technician, and got to the point of where I was ready for that step up into a more managerial role. So I've had to put my coveralls into deep storage, unfortunately, and dust off the blue suit, and then take a step up into the managerial role. So it was never a plan of mine to gain a commission and ultimately go for a degree. But where I was talking about my plan, and it has to be fluid and it has to evolve. 2 years ago, that was where I again came to that fork in the road again and decided that was the route I was going to take.
So for a managerial position, do you need to have a degree?
No, not at all. So again, we go back to where I was saying about degrees generally are for quite specialised roles, again, such as the medical role or even an engineering role. So in the Air Force, a degree was required to be an engineer in the Royal Air Force. I could have pursued a different route and gained a managerial position without pursuing a degree.
And of course, outside of the Royal Air Force, people can become managers, I imagine, by climbing the ladder and working hard in other companies too, can't they?
Most definitely, and I think you gain all that experience, that invaluable experience, by working your way up a chain of command, and to sit at a position, in a managerial position without a degree, you've got something completely that you can't go to university and get, and that's the experience and that's the skills that you can extract from day-to-day working within any role, really.
How much do you love being a manager now?
It's different. In the Air Force, you go through certain ranks and you gain a little bit extra responsibility, and you gain a little bit more command over people. So before I commissioned, I was a corporal, so I was in control of a few people on a frontline squadron, which was fine. And then to take that next step to being in charge of potentially 60 to 70 people under your command is quite different. It takes a bit of getting used to, indeed, but I was at the point in my life and my career where I was ready to take that step.
Did you know that joining the RAF means you'll gain a professional qualification that's recognised in the civilian world, and you'll have a guaranteed job in your chosen field once you've completed it, as well as getting paid to learn? You'll get the chance to travel the world, play sport and perform an important role in the RAF. If that sounds good to you, check out the description to find out more. Let's talk about your to uni or not to uni moment. You said that when you decided to join the Royal Air Force, your parents were supportive. Were they supportive when you decided initially university wasn't for you and you didn't really have a plan?
I think with most parents back then, there was probably a certain amount of disappointment, I must admit. But when I proposed my plan for the future, they foresaw that the university is not the only option. I managed to open their eyes, and I don't know whether that's a generational thing or a cultural thing, but for them, the university was a natural step. Both my sister and my brother went through university, so why didn't I, kind of thing. But I managed to kind of forge this future and make this plan where I could go out there and get all the skills needed to progress forward. Obviously, at the time, you don't know. It's all in the ether. It's all thoughts and hopes and dreams. But it's investing in that plan and sticking by it and ensuring that it works. Ultimately, allows you to achieve your goals.
So, if there were parents listening to this or watching this, and they're struggling with the idea of their child not going to university because they've kind of been sold that it's the best thing for them to do, what would you say to those parents?
I think you need to listen to your child and understand exactly what they want to get out of taking that step by not going to university. They need to have a clear direction in which they want to travel, and the parents need to facilitate that. At the end of the day, by forcing someone to do something, ultimately, you're not necessarily going to get 100% back in return. So there needs to be a buy-in between both parties that option is right for the child. Who doesn't want to go to university, for example, they need to also want to go down to proceed the other route.
Shifting that then, Dom. If you are the young adult and you're struggling with your parents or carers not understanding what you want to do, you don't want to go to university, and they're thinking, no, you've got to go, what are you doing? What should they do?
From a child's perspective, I guess it's arming yourself with the facts and the reasoning behind it, because obviously if your parents are so adamant that that's the route that they want you to go because that's the successful route, then you need to be prepared with facts and figures that I want to go and do this, this and this, because later on it leads to this, this and this. But also, don't be afraid to stand by your convictions. I know that's easy to say as an adult, but as a child, to stand up to your parents, I think there's got to be a certain amount of buy-in and a certain amount of, well, I get that you want me to go to university because at the end of it you perceive that my life is going to be so much better, but in reality, if I do this, this and this, well, the outcome will be as successful, if not more so, and more importantly, I would be more happy and more comfortable doing that rather than pursuing a career or a dream of yours, I guess.
And most parents want their children to be happy,
yeah,
don't they? Talking about your degree, you said that doing a degree later on in life, there can be a stigma with that. What would you say are the advantages of doing that the way that you have?
So definitely the maturity level was key. I feel back then when I left college, I wasn't ready to go back into education. I had the buzz to get out there and go and work and get hands-on. So to study later on in life, I felt like I could commit the right amount of time and discipline to studying that I definitely wouldn't have done way back then. Not only that, I think it gives you more drive and more focus to know at that point that what that degree will do for you and why you're doing it. You've made a conscious decision to take yourself out of your normal day-to-day life and put yourself back into education, which some people might think is absolutely bonkers, but you're doing it for a reason, and that reason is to obviously further personal development and professional development.
And you've weighed up the pros and the cons in your own time rather than being pushed into a direction that you don't really want to go down or you're not sure about as well.
Exactly. And I made that decision on my own at a completely random time and age and point in my life, but it was the time that I felt I wanted to personally, which is obviously key. You've got to want to do something for you to put 100% in, and also it was going to benefit my career and future going forward.
I hope that listeners feel reassured, actually, that they can go in and do something, go and do a different job, go to the Royal Air Force, whatever that may be or whatever that may look like, and then get a degree later on if they so wish or not. It's nice to have a refreshing perspective from you, Dom.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. When it comes to the university element as well, did you ever feel like if you didn't go, you were lazy, almost? Or
At that time?
Yeah.
Not so much, no, because I think if my life would have taken a different route, I probably might have considered myself lazy, because yes, there's a lot of effort involved, and you just all at that point in your life is school and sixth form and studying and exams. So to get that break to go out there and earn some money and actually start a career path of your choosing, it sounds fantastic. So I guess there is a certain lazy element to the fact that you're not going back to university, but I didn't feel lazy at the time, because I was quite clear with what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So if anything, the talk about going to university and the conversations with my college and my own personal ego were actually slowing me down from actually progressing outside of university.
Why can apprenticeships also be a route to success?
So apprenticeships, as I alluded to earlier, were it's you're sidestepping the academic element and you're going straight into industry. So there's going to be there's the hands-on experience, there's the hard skills that you get from apprenticeships that you can't get from university. In an engineering world, they're hand skills, that's the knowledge of doing the job physically rather than reading and studying and critically analysing a certain element. It's hard to pinpoint down an exact example, and there's also you're given that responsibility that you get bestowed upon you from such an early age. If you go to university, yes, I understand that you're kind of autonomous in the halls. You have to look after yourself, but as an apprentice, you're going to work. You've got to be at work on time. You've got to complete your job. You get a wage. You'll probably have a certain amount of finances. So it's giving you life skills at the same time as giving you the hard and the soft skills needed for everyday life, really.
And I suppose you've got that balance, haven't you? Because you'll be working as if it's a day job. You might have some homework or things to do outside of it, but you're kind of getting used to that normal routine. And you mentioned the critical thinking or kind of literature. You could do that in your own time if you wanted to brush up that skill, as well as doing the kind of physical hands-on stuff, couldn't you?
Most definitely, yeah. And that's exactly it. It's managing your time wisely, taking out everything that the apprenticeship gives you, and then allowing you to have that freedom to either further study or develop yourself, or at least give you an understanding of what you can do maybe after the apprenticeship or going forward. It allows you to pick and choose your direction rather than be given a direction by a syllabus and a set of criteria that you need to meet in order to achieve your academic goal.
What do you think apprenticeships provide that university doesn't?
So an apprenticeship will provide you with the freedom to explore the world. If you go to university, you're stuck in one place doing one specific thing, whereas an apprenticeship, if you choose an apprenticeship, you can take an apprenticeship in any industry, in any city, in any country, and it allows you that freedom to experience worldwide skill set that maybe you won't get necessarily at university.
And a lot of people like going to university for the nightlife or the social element, being involved in clubs and sports. If you don't go to university, do you think you miss out on that? Do you feel like you missed out? Do you regret not going for that reason?
So I think that would be looking back now, and I do a bit of work now, visiting universities, giving talks and whatnot, I do look and think the lifestyle looks fantastic. And I think if I'd have known that way back then, that might have been, will I be missing out? Will I get the FOMO element? But actually, pursuing the career I have in the Royal Air Force, it is like one giant campus, I guess. You're not tied into one particular university for your whole time there. The Air Force and everything that it gives you, the camaraderie, the people that you meet, the social element, the ability to travel and see the world is something that I, A, would not have been able to take out of university, and B, if I had gone to university, I might not have pursued the career that I have done. I probably wouldn't have pursued the career I have done.
This does feel like a campus, driving round,
yeah.
A huge one, just one base, and there are, hundreds and hundreds. Is there also kind of elements of socialising within the Royal Air Force, like sports clubs or anything that people can get involved in to help with that, maybe missing out on that social element? Entirely.
The Air Force, or all three services really, are built on the social element, and a lot of that does stem from sports clubs. Sports clubs are the hub for people to meet and get together. I remember my first day on unit, and it was quite a lonely experience because you don't know anybody. You get to report to your section, and you meet everybody on day one, and they're from all walks of life, from all corners of the country, and you're kind of forced into that environment. But then I found a sport which I got involved with, and then that straight away alleviated that loneliness and that kind of you're on your own kind of feeling when you first walk in there, and you make friends, and they're friends for life, and that's the wonderful thing about the military. You grow up with friends and you go to school with friends, but some people move away, and those friendships will possibly dwindle and dwindle away, whereas in the military, everyone always says that the RAF's a small place, and you always bump into someone that you knew way back when, and it's almost like you weren't, that the 10 years that you've not seen that person were more like 10 days. So the Air Force and the life in the military is now, knowing what I know, it's one big university experience that doesn't end.
It's like a special club.
It is a special club. You've got to be a special person to be in it.
And what was the sport that you said that you got involved in?
So mine was hockey.
Okay.
Hockey for me, I grew up in the Black Country in the West Midlands, and hockey wasn't a thing there. It was football or rugby. So I got introduced to hockey and straight away fell in love with the sport. It was something new, and that really grew me as a person from that early age, in a social capacity, in a sporting capacity, and it allowed me to work as a team. And I think people nowadays, especially kids growing up, who the Xbox generation, as you call it, I think team working is something that is quite hard to come by, not through any fault of their own. I think it's just through today's society, and the Air Force is one big team. You have to work within that team. So to form part of that team and to work successfully as a team is key.
And to build those friendships for life.
And the friendships for life.
So before we end today's episode, what advice would you give to someone considering their options, Dom?
So I think my advice, which I would give now, would be going back to, as I said earlier, about having a plan, having a direction that you'd like to go in life. And I made the mistake when I originally came up with my plan, where if I didn't meet my milestones, it would be deemed as unsuccessful. Now, knowing what I know, that's an absolutely farcical way to think of it, because plans should be so fluid and evolving. And goals are good. So goals give you focus, goals give you direction and drive. So if you can come up with a certain amount of goals and targets to meet within a certain amount of time, and you aim for those, you know which direction you're going to go, and then you can base your current position off of where you might have wanted to be. Some people might not agree with a plan. Some people might think we'll just take day by day and go with the flow, and that's cool. But at the same time, there's two types of people. You either need that direction or fluidity, and is your friend. So yeah, for me, my one advice would be is have goals, have drive, have determination, and if you want to achieve something, gosh, you can achieve it if you try.
What a lovely place to end. Dom, thank you so much for sharing all of your stories and advice today. It's been really eye-opening, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Force. If you enjoyed this, then make sure you subscribe for future episodes. And please do give this a share. It makes all the difference. We want as many people to realise their potential by finding their force.